Hi, welcome to Tax Hacks with Alli. I'm Alli, your host, and I'm a tax professional. I've been doing taxes, U.S. taxes, for about 20 years, and I have spent many hours learning and many hours on hold with IRS, and I'd like to share with you some of my experiences so that you can maybe sleep better at night and maybe answer some of your questions. So, for today, I'd like to just talk to you about what happens if you owe IRS. So, I understand that when you owe IRS, it can be really scary, especially if you don't have money to pay them. So, the year's gone by, you worked your butt off. Maybe you had 2-3 jobs. That's generally how people end up owing the IRS money, because when you just have one full-time job, they're usually taking out the appropriate amount of taxes when you filled out your W-4 and it indicated how many dependents you have. But where I see people fall into a problem is when they have multiple jobs and they end up having part-time work where the withholding doesn't quite add up. So although you may make as much money as you would at one full-time job working 2 or 3 jobs, the withholding doesn't quite calculate the same when your employer is withholding it, even if you filled out the W-4 form the same. Or sometimes maybe spouses. So when you're filling out this W-4 form, you are indicating whether you're married or single, if you have children. So if you say you're married and you have 2 kids, and then your spouse says that they're married and they have 2 kids, now we've got 2 sets of married people and 2 sets of 2 kids. So we've actually indicated that we have 8 people in the household, and you have 4 people in the household. So there's a lot of ways that it can get screwed up. Multiple workplaces, multiple earners in the tax return group of the married couple, or maybe a seasonal bonus that you didn't have any taxes taken out of. So whatever the case, or maybe you win the lottery. You win the lottery, you get tickets to a concert and they're valued at over $600. You're going to get a 1099 for that $600. And so, yippee, you won the lottery. This happens with Price is Right, where all of a sudden you won a new car, but now you owe taxes on a $35,000 car. And because that is income. You won something, and that prize is taxable to your federal government and possibly your state. You also may have to pay sales tax depending on the terms of this winning. So you go to file your tax return, you get all your documents in the mail, and they say that you owe a couple $1,000. So you don't have it. And so what are you going to do? And so people can do a couple of things. You certainly should have a second look. If you're doing it yourself, you might want to contact a tax professional and just make sure you haven't goofed anything up. But if there's a reason, if you won that lottery and now, I didn't realize it was going to be taxable, then go ahead and you're going to want to file that tax return. You can do an extension, which gives you an extra 6 months. That extension needs to be filed by the original due date of generally April 15th. So you file this extension form 4868, and that gives you an extra 6 months to file the return, but you definitely don't want to have a late return because it'll all of a sudden cost you more money. You're going to owe the tax, you're going to owe penalties and interest until it's paid for not having paid it on its due date of April 15th. But if you file a late tax return on April 20th or do an extension and file it on October 20th, you're going to have an additional fee. So we don't want to pile on additional fees. So the worst thing you can do is not file an on-time tax return. The best thing you can do is file it and pay it if you can. But don't go hungry. Don't miss your rent or house payment in order to pay IRS. They have solutions for you. So if you find yourself in this predicament, there's definitely some options, but your first priority is get that tax return filed and file it on time. It definitely makes it a harder situation if you don't get it filed on time, because it just adds extra hurt to it, extra pain. And so anyhow, so you're going to get that filed. You now owe the IRS. It's going to take them a month, maybe 2, to send you a letter and say, hey, we noticed you owe us some money. And here's your notice. Here's any penalties and interest that might be additional. And here's what your balance is. And on that letter, there's going to be a phone number you can call. In general, that phone you can call 1-800-829-1040. The IRS tax form for individuals is 1040. So their 800 numbers, 1-800-829-1040, 1040. You can give them a call and tell them you need to make a payment on that tax due. And they have some payment arrangement options for you. And I will get into those a little more in the next video of what your payment options are and how to go about getting those started. So if you can't make a payment, if you can't pay the balance in full within about 3 months of filing that tax return, you need to make a payment plan, and that's going to keep you off of the naughty list for IRS. So anyways, I hope this helps answer a couple questions about what do I do if I owe? Should I even file the return? Can I just skip it? No, don't skip it. File it. Pay it if you can. If you can't, you're going to need to call and make a payment arrangement. And there are some additional solutions for you there, which I'll get into the next video. See you then.